That summer remains vividly etched in my memory as it tested my patience in unexpected ways. The challenge came from my wife, Everly, who was eagerly anticipating her 25th birthday. We had planned to celebrate it at the ocean's edge, booking tickets for July and spending an entire week at a luxurious resort. However, just 3 weeks before our scheduled departure, my boss gave me shocking news. He offered me a lucrative contract that required me to go abroad for at least a month. Understandably, Everly was furious about this sudden change in plans. To soften the blow, I suggested she take her family along instead. Unfortunately, this idea didn't appeal to her mother, Sophia, at all. At 45, Sophia was meticulous about her health and fitness, enjoying sports, and even indulging in the occasional cosmetic procedure. I remembered that after Everly and her twin brother David were born, their father had opted for a vasectomy. Feeling their family was complete, the ASR plans unraveled. Sophia managed to take some time off work, but Everly's father couldn't arrange even a week away. David, the more active twin, tried to lighten the mood with a humorous gift involving his 5-year-old twins. David, always serious and having married young, struggled to balance his demanding career with family responsibilities, leaving little time to care for his children. That in contrast, Everly seemed more carefree, sometimes bordering on recklessness. Before we married, she was like Mercury, present one moment and gone the next. This behavior extended to her relationships, which often changed dramatically overnight. Despite living together for 2 years, I had never noticed anything amiss. I thought I was attentive enough as a husband and soon-to-be father, yet a nagging feeling told me I should have paid closer attention to her behavior. As June came to a close, I prepared for my work trip, tidying up our home and bidding Everly farewell. Each evening, she sent me snapshots from the coastline, mostly showing her nephew enjoying various activities with his mom. The pictures were vibrant and full of life: clowns, pool parties, and adventure rooms. It was clear the children were having a great time. On Everly's birthday, I woke up early to surprise her with a video call. She seemed taken aback by my gesture and appeared tired, explaining that she'd eaten seafood the night before, which had upset her stomach and caused a restless night. However, during our call, I noticed something odd: a striking bottle of liquor and several glasses on the table. Everly casually mentioned they'd enjoyed a few drinks with her mom the previous night, which seemed to explain it. Still, the presence of more than 2 glasses raised questions in my mind. When I returned home at the start of August, I surprised Everly with a lavish bouquet and a shiny gold chain as a belated birthday gift. Though it was late, I wanted to celebrate her special day. By the end of the summer, Everly revealed she was pregnant after seeing 2 lines on the test. We decided to keep the news to ourselves for the time being. She began visiting her doctor regularly, following the routine for expectant mothers. Reflecting on those summer days, I remember the mix of joy and uncertainty they brought. One day, as I waited for Everly outside the clinic, I noticed her medical folder on the front seat. Out of boredom, I opened it and started flipping through the papers. What I found left me in shock. The chart indicated that Everly was 10 weeks pregnant, with the timeline tracing back to early July. I did the math in my head. Narrowing it down to the period between July 15th and July 20th, I distinctly remembered spending all of July abroad. And July 18th stood out because it was my wife's birthday. I had been on a Seaside getaway at the time. Realizing this, a wave of nausea swept over me, leaving an uncomfortable sensation creeping up my throat. Rather than giving in to anxiety, I decided to verify the facts. I snapped photos of the documents on my phone and carefully put everything back in its place. That time, my mother-in-law, Sophia, wasn't well. She suspected she might have stomach cancer. For days, she had been struggling with unexplained health issues, resorting to a strict diet, but the symptoms persisted. Everly, deeply worried, was terrified of facing any potential diagnosis for her mother. Nevertheless, she managed to convince Sophia to go for the necessary medical evaluations. I reasoned that it would be beneficial for an unborn child to have a grandmother and decided to support Sophia on this journey. Together with my father-in-law, Thomas, we accompanied her to the clinic while I waited in the reception area. Thomas escorted Sophia to the examination room. Only a few minutes passed before I heard a sharp cry from behind the closed door. My father-in-law bolted out, his eyes wide with shock, and ran down the corridor in a panic. Moments later, Sophia emerged, hurriedly straightening her blouse, looking visibly flustered. A nurse in a medical gown followed closely behind, explaining that such emotional outbursts weren't uncommon during menopause. She added that since it had been 10 weeks since Sophia's last menstrual cycle, they needed to make a decision about the pregnancy soon. Everything clicked into place. Determined not to let the opportunity slip by, I approached the nurse and asked for a favor. Taking out my phone, I showed her a photo of the documents. She studied the details, compared them carefully, and analyzed the data. Finally, she confirmed there was no doubt. The gestation period was indeed about 10 to 11 weeks AT that moment. My emotions erupted. I muttered in frustration and walked down the corridor, overwhelmed by the swirling storm inside me. That evening, Sophia spent time with Everly while I kept Thomas company. Together, we drank heavily, trying to process what had unfolded. Saying it didn't help would be an understatement, but eventually, as the alcohol's haze faded, we began to face reality. Strangely, we found ourselves on the same page, recognizing the situation for what it was. It was all too clear. There was no ambiguity. 2 married women had gone on that Seaside trip, but 2 women of questionable morals had returned. Thomas, deeply upset, voiced his frustration with his wife. Despite raising 2 children together and having 2 grandchildren, he lamented his own moment of weakness. But the focus wasn't just on Sophia. It was about the well-being of the family. Thomas called his son David, striking up a casual conversation. He expressed how much he missed the grandchildren and wanted to hear their voices. As often happens with 5-year-olds, the chat drifted into various topics: kindergarten, favorite foods, and eventually their summer vacation. Eager to share, the girls excitedly recounted their adventures. They mentioned Captain Jack Sparrow, who had visited their room and entertained them with games and tricks. They even described drinking colorful mineral water with their aunt and grandmother. What struck me most was their story about playing hide and seek. Captain Jack had done an excellent job of hiding, they said, and they searched everywhere before finally finding him in the bathroom with Grandma. The first one to find him, they said, received a seashell as a prize for her sharp eyesight. Hearing this, Thomas and I knew we couldn't delay any longer. The truth was undeniable, and we decided to file for divorce. In the weeks that followed, I kept in touch with my now former father-in-law, reminiscing about the past and sharing moments of reflection.